COVID-19 has invaded the entire world, and even though we have come to a situation where we have a solution, there are people who want to hinder this progress due to pseudoscience and conspiracy theories. Welcome back to Arnie News, and in today's episode, we'll be discussing vaccine hesitancy. So in this video, what I'll be doing is going through each argument that I've seen that's anti-vaccine and trying to debunk it and go through it and try to explain why it's not a valid argument, right? And the inspiration that came for this video is after I talked to a couple of friends who were anti-vaccine and they were hesitant to take the vaccine, and that really shocked me because there are so many people, and I really wanted to bring this up. There are so many people who don't have access, right? Who don't live in these big cities, and even people who do live in the big cities. I had to struggle so much to get an appointment, and it's really hard to get an appointment in the first place. So if you are in a privileged enough position to get a vaccine, then I think there is absolutely no reason that you shouldn't get the vaccine, right? And there are people who I know who are extremely privileged and who could get the vaccine if they wanted to, who are hesitant, and not even hesitant, they are basically on the verge of pseudoscience and using some absolutely shocking reasons to not take the vaccine. And that really saddened me because we are in a dire situation right now. And as the second wave hit our country, even worse than the first wave, to see that people still aren't able to accept the reality of the situation is quite gruesome. So the first reason that I've seen that's anti-vax, at least the COVID-19 vaccine in particular, is about the fear of side effects. So they're afraid of getting the side effects, and due to that, they don't want to get it. They're like, we saw what side effects are there, and we're scared of that. So let me explain to you why these side effects are coming, so that you have a good understanding of why you're getting them and why they're actually a really good thing if you're getting side effects. So first, let me explain what a vaccine is in the first place. And to understand that, basically, it's a weak or dead version of the virus that you're trying to prevent, right? And it's a weak or dead version that they put into your blood cells, and then your white blood cells will detect it and think, how do we fight against this? And since it's a weak or dead version, all it needs to do is fight off that small dosage, and it will now have the antibodies to fight against it if it actually comes, if the real one comes. And those antibodies will be spread across your bloodstream. And now you'll be completely protected because those antibodies are now part of your blood, right? So that's how it works. But with COVID, it's actually probably not safe to put a dead or weakened version of the vaccine or of the virus into your bloodstream. So what they do is something called, they put something called mRNA, that's messenger RNA. So that's basically the genetic makeup of the virus is put into your blood, and then your white blood cells form antibodies. So basically, when you get COVID, your body is the one that's creating the cold and the fever and everything to fight against it, right? Essentially, the same thing is happening here. It's basically seeing that this RNA is there, and now it's thinking, let's put the body into fever to fight it, right? And all these symptoms mean that successfully your body is fighting against the virus. Of course, if you don't get any symptoms, you shouldn't be afraid because maybe your body already has the tools required to fight against it. But the side effects are not something to be afraid of. And if you're getting side effects, that's a very good thing. That means that your body is successfully fighting against the virus. And now if you're to get the virus at some point, your body will be way more effective in fighting it. So one argument that I've seen is about the efficacy number, that if it's not 100% effective and there's still a chance that I'm going to get COVID, why should I take the vaccine, right? Like, how can I live peacefully taking the vaccine? So firstly, I'd like to explain how this efficacy number works and how you get that number, right? The effectiveness or the efficacy number, how you get it. So suppose I am a company and I want to test my new vaccine out. So I get 10,000 people, and I split them into half. So 5,000 of these people will be getting my placebo, a fake vaccine. So they don't get the RNA vaccine. And the other half, I give them my RNA vaccine, right? So now you have two sets of people, half and half. Half of them are unvaccinated, they're essentially unvaccinated, and the other half have my RNA vaccine. And then we send them out into the real world. And suppose after 3 months we check, and 500 of them, or 1,000 of them, okay, let's say 1,000 of them got COVID at some point during those 3 months. So now if 50% of them were vaccinated, that's a 0% efficacy rate. So we take the difference between the unvaccinated and the vaccinated people and divide that by the total number of people, and that is how you calculate the efficacy rate, right? So 95% efficacy rate means that they subtracted the total number of people and they got divided that by the total. They subtracted the number of vaccinated people who got the virus minus the total number of people, and then they divided that by the total number of people. So that means that 95% of the people who got COVID in that situation were not vaccinated, and that's the efficacy rate. That's how it actually works. So that's actually a very good sign, right? So that's a big misunderstanding about how the number is calculated. And I would say that on top of that, okay, even if you didn't fully understand how the number is calculated, wouldn't you rather have a 67% chance, even though that's not actually your percentage of chance? Wouldn't you rather have a 67% chance of protecting yourself from the virus than a 0% chance? Right? Like, would you rather just be at home the entire time in lockdown, in isolation? And another thing to make sure, and another thing to remember, is that the point of the vaccine is not to prevent any infection at all. But in India, AIMS has reported that out of in all the deaths so far, 0% were vaccinated patients. So 0% of vaccinated patients have been killed. That means 0 people with the vaccine have died. So even if you test positive, right? Even if you test positive, there is a very, very, very minute chance that you will be hospitalized or die due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and definitely not from the side effects, right? So that means that 0% of the people that have got COVID and died after the vaccine came out were vaccinated. So that's a very, very promising thing that people just get wrong usually. So those two were the big ones, but I'll quickly go through some other misconceptions and try to debunk them, right? So firstly, in India, there's this belief that if you don't have the vaccine, the virus, why should I get the vaccine? So they think that it's like a cure, but they don't understand that it's a prevention measure. So prevention is always better than a cure, right? So that itself hasn't been conveyed properly. And not only in India, in many countries, people just don't believe in the vaccine because they think that it's a cure, that they should take it after getting COVID, even though that you should be getting it before COVID. This is of course not for a very educated population, but this is a common misconception that people have. Another misconception that people have, or this is, I wouldn't say a misconception, this is a conspiracy theory, especially in higher income countries, where they're not having difficulty getting the vaccine, right? Especially in countries like the US and UK, there's a large percentage, not a large, okay, there's a minute percentage of the population that believe that these vaccines have microchips in them, that that they have some technology that is going to be used to track you. I think there would be far easier ways for a company to do this, and there are already microchips that are not in your body, but that are in your pockets, right? Like, if the government wanted to track you, I'm sure there are way more effective ways to do it than by vaccinating you. So I think that's just a silly argument, but it's so popular. Like, the amount of people that genuinely believe this in the internet is just shocking, right? And another thing is that there are people that believe that you can get autism and mental health disorders from the vaccine. So actually this misconception came from a study done in the UK in the 1980s by a doctor called Dr. Wakefield, right? And basically he has gone on trial and on court and said that he has falsified the information in this study, right? Essentially, so that study is wrong and it was just a hypothesis, and every single anti-vax movement has come from that one study, which is false. Like the people that got autism, they didn't get autism. First of all, autism is a spectrum, right? And there can be different signs of autism, and he hand picked his trial to be with people already showing symptoms which their parents didn't detect, and he took advantage of these children, these 10-year-olds, to um, push that the MMR vaccine would give people autism. But the truth is that he was trying to push another vaccine that doesn't give autism, and that was his whole agenda, which people forget. And now the anti vax movement is completely with that belief in mind, which is, first of all, falsified, and second of all, falsified for commercial reasons to push another vaccine. So it's like a completely silly thing that, like, people have taken to a completely different level, right? And these are the reasons that I've seen. Another reason that I've seen is that minorities feel like that the government or the people are trying to use these vaccines to eradicate them, right? Because at some in the US there was these medicines given for syphilis to some people in the African American community, right? And they were vaccinated for syphilis, and they believed they were vaccinated, right? They were not vaccinated for syphilis. They were vaccinated, and then syphilis spread in this community. So people thought that the government was injecting syphilis into these people to spread syphilis in the community. But actually, it was because of negligence and not related to the vaccine at all. But then this paranoia came within the minority community that the government is trying to eradicate them through vaccines. Of course, that would be genocide, and I think that it's just another one of these scary beliefs. And on the other side of things, you see the majority in some countries believing that vaccines were made by the minorities, especially in the US. There's anti-Semitism, that there are a lot of people that believe that the Jews created the vaccine to eradicate the Christian population. So it's just so many senseless theories like this, right? But it should be brought into light, because people are so afraid of science if they don't understand it, that they will just think of anything as a way to be against science. And especially in a time like this, when we have such a deadly pandemic, isn't it very toxic, and isn't it very harmful to our society that we still have beliefs like this that are hindering our progress and hindering our protection to come out of this situation? So what can we learn from this? The main thing that we can learn from this is that we have to trust scientists and doctors and all these people who have done years of research to get to this point, that they have a level of certainty that these vaccines or these research is valid and these vaccines are effective, right? And if these people with incredible amounts of knowledge are telling you that it's safe to be vaccinated, and if you see everyone around you that are getting vaccinated and are surviving, I think people should just stop believing in these conspiracy theories so much and just trust science. Because, and I know this is especially hard for a lot of people who don't have scientific knowledge, and what I find is that the more educated you are and the more knowledge you have about science, the more trusting you are of the vaccine. It's the people with less education and less knowledge that are usually against the vaccine, right? So I feel like as a collective, we just need to trust these people who have so much more experience than us to protect us, right? And I think that's my main takeaway. Please stop spreading misinformation and trust the experts. Thank you for watching Arnie News.